Hey everyone, welcome to season 2 of the Total BS Show. I am super excited to launch this series for season 2. We have a lot of great guests that are already lined up for the season. We actually have some national brands as well as some local entrepreneurs throughout the country. So just super blessed that we had the chance for our first episode of season 2 to interview Carol Roth. If you guys have not heard of Carol Roth, which if you're in business or if you've seen any type of TV in the last 10 years, you've probably heard of Carol Roth. She is a dynamite business speaker, consultant, advocate, and financier. So I couldn't have asked for a better person to launch season 2 with. I hope you enjoy this. We'll play a little video for you to get to know her a little bit more. And let's launch season 2. Talk to you soon.
Your business with new technology has never been easier. Next on Microsoft's Accelerate Your Business show, live from New York City.
Are you feeling calm, Shaq? Do you feel well rested now?
Pretty good, I like it.
Coming up on the next Office Small Business Academy, the death of the cold call. We explore social selling, using social networks to grow sales.
I've never turned down jewelry before, so why would I start now?
I love it. But one thing, I'm a numbers gal.
Okay.
So before we jump further, I need to know, you're telling me this is the same thing I'm getting in a Fortune 50 company.
Yep. For our panel, Sir Richard Branson, Cassie Ho, Sean Rad, and Miguel McKelvey. Oh.
And to you.
And you. Thank you, Richard.
Can the commissioner, Roger Goodell, survive this latest scandal?
Well, first I would like to say if the NFL is looking for a new commissioner, I'm available. Call me. Very qualified, and the NFL already follows me on Twitter.
Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of the Total BS Show. So the Total BS Show stands for Total Business Spotlight. Where we are designed to really help small businesses learn by bringing in either small business owners themselves who have had some experience and can help you kind of guide yourself on the path to expediting your journey, or bringing in experts, bringing in people who know what they're doing, who've done it many times and helped people along the way. And one of the people that I said this season I have to have is Carol Roth. For those people that don't know Carol Roth, and if you're a business person, I don't know who you are that doesn't know who she is. Let me give you some details of who this person is. Wharton School of Graduate, magna cum laude. She's a founder of Future File, which is easy, comprehensive wish planning for, I believe, funeral homes for when you're going through a funeral. The Future File system helps people organize their wishes and information, and then creates a roadmap for their loved ones to follow in case of dementia, Alzheimer's, medical issues, or upon death. She's on the board of directors of a ton of different companies. For example, she's been on the board of directors of Travel Zoo. She's an advisory board member of hedge funds. She has carolroth.com, which her blog, if you have a chance and you are a small business owner, you have to go to carolroth.com to read articles of other small business owners, their journey, their stories, and she brings them all together for you. Not only that, she's a best-selling author of The Entrepreneur Equation. She is regularly named one of the top industry influencers by Small Business Trends. I mean, oh my God, the list goes on. On-air talent, she's on Fox News, Fox Business, CNBC. She's a judge on TV, on the TBS show. She hosts the Roth Effect podcast. And by God, she has her own action figure, which I think last time I met you, I said, can I get one? And you said no, but that's okay. Hopefully this time I might be able to get one. So in meeting her years ago, she is a Chicago native. She's a no-nonsense, in-your-face, real talk, straightforward business owner and business advisor. So she is somebody that said, you know what, if I'm going to step up my game for season 2, she's somebody I have to have on the show. And so I was very blessed that I reached out to you. You said, let's do it. But there's only one rule that we have. And I think we both kind of agree. We don't hold punches. So
That's my brand, and by the way, I'm exhausted in listening to all of those things. I need to go take a nap now.
That's all right. You've done a lot, and you're still going. So we're not going to hold punches. It's 2021. We've all been through 9 months of COVID. We've scrapped, we've clawed, we've fought our way through and dragged ourselves over the finish line of 2020. And now it's time to double down for 2021. Some people, like I said, dragged themselves down. Some people sprinted hard. And so now it's a time to reevaluate, get things going, and really have a candid interview of what it takes to be a small business owner, not only in the Chicagoland area, but also across the country, because hopefully this thing can pick up everywhere. So let's get right into it. Carol, when you work with small business owners all over the country, a lot of the people who listen to this or might be watching this are really like new entrepreneurs. So they're trying to figure things out. From your experience, what are some of the things that every small business owner needs to gameplay for?
So I think one of the biggest issues that I've encountered from small business owners, and this goes for brand new small business owners, and sometimes it goes for business owners who've been around for multiple decades, is what am I doing and why am I doing it? I mean, this sounds so bizarre and so just fundamental. But a lot of people go into business because they have a passion, because they really like to do some aspect, whether it was baking cupcakes or engaging with people, but they didn't really have a plan for what they wanted to do for their business. Like what is it that you're trying to accomplish outside of just servicing that customer or making that product from a business standpoint? And so really setting something up to understand your how and your why is critical, because if you don't do that, what ends up happening is that you end up with a job or a job business instead of a business that builds equity. And by goodness, we knew it before 2020. We definitely know it now. Small business owners risk so much to go into business. It's so challenging. There's time, there's money, there's just your soul in the business. It's who you are. And so you want to really be thinking about building up something of value that is apart from just yourself. Because in moments like today, when you get burnt out or maybe eventually want to retire, it's important to have that something that you've built. Otherwise, you've just created a job for yourself with a lot more stress.
So, I mean, you've coined the phrase jobby. So there's a ton of small business owners who are kind of dipping their toes into the water of entrepreneurship. So it's very timid. They're very timid to really go after it. So while I always like the philosophy of no one likes to hire a skinny salesperson, you've kind of coined the phrase jobby. So can you tell me a little bit about what a jobby means, and then the progression of the small business owner journey?
Yeah, so the jobby is sort of that first step. It's the hobby that's disguised or a job or a business. And in and of itself, there is absolutely nothing wrong with a jobby. A jobby is a great way to test out a business idea to see if it's viable. It's also great to have hobbies that make money versus ones that suck up all of your money, like golf. So it's a good first step in the process. But the problem is a lot of people get stuck in this sort of kind of hobby, not really serious kind of business. And that's when sometimes people decide that they want to make the leap, go more full-time, or make it a little bit more professionalized. And then we get to that job business that I was just talking about, where you've created something that looks and smells a little bit like a business. But the reality is, if you're not there every day, the business isn't making money. The client only wants to work with you. They don't want to work with your underlings, or maybe you don't even have any underlings. If you go on vacation for 2 weeks, the business is not producing any revenue. And so therefore, if you ever do want to retire or sell the business, there's nothing really that you have of value that you have built up equity in. And obviously not every small business owner goes into business to build up equity, but if you're going to bother doing it, and from a risk and reward standpoint, that really helps the reward side of the equation if you can think about building up equity. And I think that especially after this year, we're seeing how important that is. So that's where you need to really be thinking about how you can scale the business, make it run without you doing every single thing, which is hard for a lot of entrepreneurs who like to do things their way. and start creating something that has value that stands apart from you.
So and then you had the progression of the solopreneur, which we've talked about before in the past in our conversations, where it's you basically doing all the work yourself. You can't go on vacation because as soon as you go off on vacation, the income's not coming in. Can you tell me a little bit of why you think most people are stuck in being the solopreneurs?
So I think that people who go into entrepreneurship are often people who are very smart, and smart people don't make the best entrepreneurs, because the best entrepreneurs are those who make things so easy that a monkey can be trained to do it and it can work in every single way, versus you having to be the best at everything. So if you are a perfectionist and you're pursuing perfection and having everything done your way, you don't make any progress. So there's this, constant struggle for smart people being successful in entrepreneurship. Bill Gates actually, I think, had a quote about this, that he said he'd rather hire a lazy person because they'll find out a quick and easy way to get something done, versus the people who are really smart who want to make everything super complicated and perfect. And so there's always, as an entrepreneur, putting your own sort of ego and standards to some extent. Obviously, it still has to be good enough that you feel good about putting your name on it and that the customer finds value in it. But it maybe means going out with a product or with a software or with a service that doesn't have 95 bells and whistles, which, by the way, is great because it gives you the opportunity to upsell those new additions, once you get people hooked on the base version, instead of waiting till you get everything in there and then it's obsolete anyway. So a lot of it is just personal and shifting your mindset, which is a really difficult thing to do. I'm one of those people, so I get it, but it's one of those things that you have to move past in your entrepreneurial journey if you do want to make sure that you're not just the only person that matters in your business.
Well, you said two things that kind of impacted me a little bit. So perfectionism, it's one of the, I don't get that as someone that's more of a doer, and I just fly by the seat of my pants. And maybe that's why I've kind of been a little bit successful, is the thought logic that you're the only person in the world who could possibly do that task or job. And you're the only one that can do it. No matter how big or small the task is, you have to be the one that does it. I mean, how much does perfectionism get in the way of being a business owner? I mean, it's something where I feel like that's 9 times out of 10 of faults is they're stuck from being the solopreneur. They can't think of the thought process to then hire someone to do the task.
Yeah, it's how shall I say this? A lot of times it's not thinking that you're the only person who could do it in the universe. It's that you don't want to pay for the other people in the universe who probably could do it in a similar manner that you do. So the person who you are paying doesn't do it in the same way that you do it. So sometimes it's not even as well as you do it. It's just not the way that I would do it. And not being able to recognize that that's okay, or even if it's not as good as you do it and you do it better, that if it still serves the customer and serves the main purpose, that's okay. It is that pursuit of progress over perfection. And it's such a huge sticking point for entrepreneurs. And like I said, one of the things that we do in our business is every single year, 2 times a year, I sit down with the team, and at every level say, like, what are you doing with your time? And is this time well spent? Meaning at your pay level and your capability level, like, is this task really something you should be focusing on? Or do you need to be focusing on better use of your time types of tasks, and we find somebody else to bring it in? And I'll tell you, even at different levels in the business, sometimes it's hard because there are a lot of people who do have that sort of control freak nature and know I can do everything and I can manage it. But the reality is you can't, and the business doesn't progress if everybody's not being used at their highest potential level. And again, there are growing pains, and not everybody's going to get things done the right way. But like a really good resource for people that I always recommend, and I actually wrote my book as sort of a prequel to it, is called The E-Myth Revisited by Michael E. Gerber. It is an entrepreneur's Bible of scalability. And he makes the point that you want to train for the lowest common denominator, not the highest common denominators in those businesses. If you think of McDonald's, they create a procedure not so, the Rhodes Scholars of the universe can do there, but the people who are just entering the workforce. And again, not to put down anyone who works at McDonald's, but a lot of times that is a first job, is going in and learning these things. And so it has to be so easy that anyone can do it. And then the other thing is technology. I mean, this is another conversation that we have in that same conversation about best use. Are there things that you can be doing that we can automate or use technology? I have one part of my business that's very heavily involved in customer service. So it's constantly staying on top of things like bots and AI in customer self-service to figure out where customers can really answer the questions themselves, or where we can kind of group together, hey, 90% of our stuff is coming in around this. How can we fix that? Just to clarify and streamline procedures. So, where are you spending your time? Is it the best use of time? And where can you use technology to supplement and, help you to scale? I think those are two really important questions. And everybody in the organization, whether it's 2 people or 200 people, you should be asking them that at least twice a year.
So one of the things that, and I totally agree with you on that, is when I work with small business owners for Prime Media Consulting, it's always talking to them about how are they marketing and promoting themselves. And maybe they have something that's kind of they're wanting to launch, but they haven't figured it out yet, or they're just very timid. And because they want everything to be perfect, it's that perfectionism bubble, or at least I don't want to look bad if I launch it. And the one thing I always challenge them is something I learned a long time ago, and I honestly forget where it came from, but it's, you need to find your MVP, your minimum viable product. What's the thing that's going to launch? And you can always build upon it, because if you are looking for the perfect system, you're never going to find it, because there's always going to be tweaks and edits. You're always going to find, you just want something that people can grasp the concept behind. And then, okay, let's add on to it as time goes on. Because if you don't, you're always just going to be tinkering with something that's never going to come into fruition.
Yeah, I mean, and just think about the tools that you use, whether it's, the Microsoft Office suite of products, whether it's Constant Contact for your email, whether it's Twitter or Facebook or whatever it is that you're using on a regular basis, and think about what the versions were like 10 years ago. And that's the whole focus of their companies. So, you get people into the system, and here's the great thing. If people love what you're doing, but it's not 100% perfect for them, like, they'll tell you, which is great, because sometimes you think you know what it is that the customers want, and it's actually not what they want. In fact, they don't even know what they want until they start using it. And then they go, oh, okay. And they give you that feedback, and then you can react real time. So it is really important, like you say, to have that MVP. That the question to ask yourself is, does this deliver value to the customer? If it delivers value to them, even if it's not the level of value you want, even if it's not every bell and whistle, like, does it deliver value to them? If so, get it in their hands, and then, like you said, continue to tinker, continue to work, continue to push out updates, and move forward and have that progress.
How many people love the idea of Oreos or Monopoly or other different things out there that they're like, oh, this would be fantastic. And because they couldn't figure it out, or they couldn't make it perfect, they never were able to do it. And that's something that I learned from, I think it was Gary Vee, from a video that he did a while ago, is if you really want to see what your life could have been like, go to a nursing home. Go to somebody that's experienced life and talk to them for an hour or 2 hours of things they wish they would have done. And if you do that, you realize, what the hell am I waiting for? Like, time is gonna go by regardless of your day. Like, might as well start doing something that you love.
Well, and not only that, I think the idea versus execution proposition is one that people really don't spend enough time on. They spend so much time thinking about and refining an idea. And as we just mentioned, a lot of times the original idea you have is something you have to pivot from. You think about like an Airbnb, their original idea was for you to like sleep on couches and in people's like extra bedrooms in their house while they were there. And, they went through some different iterations, and it was actually one of their investors who said, well, what about this concept of, actually just renting out your house when you're not there? And they weren't at first interested, but they were running out of money and they had no other choice to either pivot or go out of business. And they made that pivot, and now look at where the company is today. So a lot of people get caught up in like, is this a good idea? Is it, like, just put something out there, get feedback. There's a saying about, there are a whole slew of sayings about failure. The one that I like is that you fail fast, you fail cheaply, and you never fail the same way twice. And if you use that to continue to execute on whatever idea or set of ideas, that's going to keep you moving forward, because failure does not stop a person. It's part of a process. If you're never failing, then you're not reaching far enough and big enough. But if you're spending so much time and so much effort and so many resources that it has to go right because you have 6 or 7 figures invested in this thing and it doesn't go right, then you're screwed, and the risk reward proposition is completely out of whack. So fail fast, fail cheaply, and learn your lesson. Don't do it again once you figured out why it went wrong.
I feel like, we all have these slogans. We all read these memes, or all these great quotes out there that we learn from other people. And can you tell me a little bit about getting advice from other people? And maybe that small business owners or people that you've looked up to in the past, how do you know or figure out who to listen to and what is just kind of noise or some person's opinion that it's good to hear, but thanks for the advice, I'm going to go a different direction?
Wow, that's a fantastic question. Advice is one of those things, like you said, everybody has, but it's not necessarily always valuable. And at the end of the day, there also aren't necessarily right answers. There are different paths with different outcomes and different risk propositions based on your goals. So talking to people should be to gather information and get different perspectives, not to have somebody make the answer for you. The best people to ask advice are people who have skin in the game. So if you have professional investors, for example, who are incentivized to see you succeed and their dollars are on the line, that's a really good person to ask advice. Your in-law who knows nothing about anything and just has lots of opinions and likes you is not necessarily a good person to ask for advice. So even people with great track records, if they don't have skin in the game, a lot of people can't see in front of them. A lot of people can't self-reflect. A lot of people have gotten lucky and can't determine that they know what certain things, but they don't know what they don't know. But I think you need to kind of look at the person's track record and and how much skin they have in the game. And you also need to ask the right questions. The best advice is asking a specific scenario and getting somebody to comment on it. I think too many people are vague or want someone to make an answer for them. But like, I'm considering X, Y, and Z, and here's my concern about X, and here's my concern about Y, and here's my concern about Z. Here's what I'm trying to accomplish. What do you think about that? Is going to give you a lot more clarity than like, hey, what should I do with my life? What kind of a business should I start?
I think all those are fantastic. One thing that I would probably add to that is be careful who you talk to, because if you go out there asking all these different questions because you want to crowdsource answers, there's going to be some people that you get responses from that have skin in the game somewhere else.
Good point.
And they might want to thwart your efforts because it might impact someone else or impact them.
I'm going to say a horrible thing to add on to that. is that like human nature is human nature, and people are really jealous of other people's success too. And so even if they don't have skin in the game other places, there are a lot of people who you might think like you who don't want to see you succeed. They might not even know it, but like their gut, like, you know, puts this stuff out there and creates this doubt, just because they have a scarcity mindset instead of an abundance mindset.
I read something the other day that grabbed me. It was some people's only chance of success is taking a bite out of yours.
Brutal.
And so it's interesting to see how people are like really evolving as a business owner. We really have gone through some craziness of people that were the jobbies and they come to solopreneur. How do you know when you've actually hit a bona fide business ownership?
Can you go on vacation for 2 weeks and the business still runs? If you can do that, congratulations.
Simple as that.
Pretty much.
All right.
It's a simple test. I mean, obviously, you know, there are a whole slew of things you can do afterwards, but like if you can go away, you can step aside from the business and the business still runs and is generating revenue, like you're doing the right things.
So when I first met you, it was years ago. It was we were at an event where we had Google, Yelp, Barry Moltz, and you were panel speakers, and you were talking about the change in internet and the change of how things are going. And this was right after the financial downfall. We were kind of coming back up during the recovery. And now we've been going through for the past 9 months, the pandemic. So are there any correlations that you can see from 2008, 2009, and this pandemic when it comes to how a small business owner needs to recover, how they need to go after it, and how they should protect themselves?
Well, on the protection side, certainly you should always plan for and expect the worst, because there's going to be a downturn. Obviously, the Great Recession was a systemic issue and was a business cycle issue. This one I call a government black swan. It was a panic reaction that nearly nobody could have anticipated. And it's why you've seen sort of a different level of recovery and sort of impact in different parts of the economy, and why the stock market, you know, in November hits new highs for the NASDAQ and the S&P 500, while small businesses are going out of business. So always prepare for the worst. And you know, that's even in the best of times, just know that that's around the corner. I think in terms of recovery, again, this is a very different scenario, because you know, it depends on who you are, what kind of business you have, who you are servicing. If you're a small business that's in the services sector and you're servicing people whose jobs also are related to small business, that's a very different scenario than if you are a luxury brand, if you're a technology company, if you're somebody who doesn't have a storefront. So this is really a tale of different recoveries. I keep calling it like an E-shaped recovery. So I don't know if this is backwards or not, but like if you think about the letter E, or you know, something that's with a W on its side, but you have like the people who are doing well, you have the people who are going to continue to plod along, and then you have the people where it's going to be a long slug. So obviously, if you are in this bottom arena, I think there are a number of things you need to think about. One is, are you in the right business? I mean, there have been a number of people who've been talking to me about, should I go into bricks and mortar because the rents are so cheap now? And the answer is, unless you can give me a really compelling reason why, no. I didn't think you should before, and I certainly think less likely that that's a good idea now. So you should really be thinking about, is there a way to move your business out of that space, literally and figuratively? And for those of you who may be stuck within that, you know, how can you take parts of your business and make that mobile? And obviously a lot of companies have already done that. Restaurants are doing delivery. People who do hair are like, my colorist sells me the color and like a whole package and instructions, and I go pick it up, and I'm doing it myself now. Not nearly as well as her, but it's still keeping her in business because I can't go there to get my color done. So it's those tweaks that, if you haven't made them now, you're probably in a different place. You probably made some of those, but how do you want to continue on that trajectory going forward? And are there things that you can be adding into your service offering, whether it's some sort of a subscription program, or it's products if you offer services, or places where you can collaborate with other businesses to cross-sell and move forward, that I think are most meaningful for people in that bottom tier. And I think there's also hey, this isn't a viable business. This has been shoved in my face now, and maybe I need to take a step back and reconsider. And that's okay too. You don't need to move forward on something just because you have that investment in it. If it's gotten in your face that, like, I've done the math and this isn't going to be viable, and I know what this is going to look like 3 years from now, and that today, you're not obligated to continue on that path for 3 years. And I know it's a hard thing to do and it's a gut-wrenching thing to do, but throwing good money and time and effort and energy after a sunk cost is a bad investment strategy, both in the stock market as well as for entrepreneurs.
I feel like, and I don't know if you agree with this, is that this is actually, in my opinion, it's worse than 2008, because at least in 2008, 2009, you could at least have your entrepreneurial spirit. And yes, the world was kind of caving in, and you can go out there and you can hustle and you can make it happen. Never in our history, and that I can recall, have we ever had a government say, we're going to do all that, and no, you can't go out and do things. Yeah. So you are literally shackled to innovate. And the problem with small business owners is that they're so used to the regimen and the idea of going after small incremental growth. Innovation is not really in a lot of business owners' mindsets.
Yeah.
And so the hardest part as someone who owns a digital marketing company is to be like, okay, we need to think differently, guys. Who all the people that might have gone to networking events, or they pass out business cards and it was a game of who can get the most cards and who can shake the most hands and all those great things. I've been saying for a year or two now, you need to figure out other different ways. Not that this was not like I was Chicken Little, I knew the sky was falling, but the idea is you have to always have an alternative. If one way is not working anymore, you should be having 2 or 3 other things in the fire, other logs in the fire that's working for you. And what happened was in March, a lot of business owners went into, I don't know what to do anymore. I'm everything I've done is now done. I have to restart everything. And not only that, I have to restart things 9, 10, 11 months down the road. That's ridiculous. And I feel like, what would you say to a small business owner right now that's like, it's 2021 now. How do I really go after the marketplace?
So before I answer that question, I just want to say one thing. If you're a small business owner and the government has said that you need to close your business for the good of society, that is eminent domain, and you should be compensated under eminent domain. And I'd find a sympathetic attorney, and I would sue your local jurisdiction for appropriate compensation, because that is unconstitutional. They cannot take your business for public use without compensating you. All right, so now that I've said that, how do you
Pull
go?
No punches. Pull no punches.
No punches. No punches. Get the lawsuits going. And if you send me a note, I will support you on social media in any other way that I can, because it's disgusting and, like you said, unprecedented and unconstitutional. Now, how do you go after the market? Again, this is highly just dependent on what kind of business. One of the great things about being somebody who is, a domain expert in small business is I actually understand the complexity of what it means to be small business. And that is so huge. There are so many different structures, sizes, geographies, industries, focuses, products versus services. everybody is going to be in a unique position. So I could give much better advice in specific scenarios, but my sort of macro advice for all scenarios is, okay, there are a couple of different low-hanging fruit paths. The lowest hanging fruit for any business is, who is my customer base? Why do they like doing business with us? And what else do they need? If you have a customer who loves you and who you have serviced well, you should be able to sell them a whole slew of other things. And you should be able, particularly this time when people are real sympathetic, to get them to help put you in front of other potential customers and clients. So the most important thing anyone, and this is, by the way, always the case, but especially the case right now, is to start with your existing customers. It's just, you're a digital marketing person, so much easier to have that conversation with somebody who knows, likes, and trusts you than somebody who has no idea who you are. No matter how many tools we have, people's minds are a little frazzled right now, so start with the people who like you. Then on top of the people who are like you, because again, depending on who your customer base is, the people who like you may be out of work and struggling right now. I mean, it's a really serious time, and there's still almost 10 million people out of business incrementally, or excuse me, out of work incrementally than there were in March when all the shutdowns started. So then it's, who is going to thrive in the future? What kinds of businesses and customers are not affected by this, are actually thriving and benefiting from what's happening? And how do I service them? And if you're in a place where you're going to rejigger your business and you have like a magic wand, or you have like an open set of options, my advice to everybody is to be the guy or the gal who sells the picks and shovels. You don't want to be the gold prospector. If you are the person, if you're managing risk, if you're selling the picks and shovels to all the different prospectors for golds, then you're going to be in a much better position, because it kind of doesn't matter who wins. Some percentage of them are going to win. And if you're in business with all of them, you'll be along with the people who win. If you're the person who's prospecting, yeah, maybe you have a little bit more upside, but you got a lot of possible downside as well. So be thinking with your team and your advisors and your investors and yourself and your mentor and your multiple personalities, whoever, what can I do to be the guy or the gal who sells the picks and shovels? How do I change my business? What can I offer? Even if you're a service provider, is there a software that you can offer? Is there some other additional service that you can tack on that's recurring, where you become that picks and shovels kind of provider in some way, shape, or form? And I think that's the advice, again, that I would have given before, but where we stand now, I think it's even more important that business owners become laser focused on that.
So one of the things that we did about a year and a half ago was we started our own kind of version of a networking group. And the concept was, it's just like every other networking, and we did it virtually. It's a bunch of small business owners getting together to help refer and support each other's businesses, as most people do, right? So two of these guys decided that one's an insurance agent, one's a roofer. And they're like, well, I like how you do something here. I like how you do something here. Let's start a business together. So they started a gutter cleaning business in Chicagoland. And one of the ideas was, how do we charge? And I know once I kind of get through this story, I think you're going to have some really great perspective on this. Is one of the concepts I said was, in today's world, it's more important to take care of your existing customers than ever, which is kind of what you said before. So the people that chose not only to work with you the first time, but continue to call you and continue to work with you. So why wouldn't you do this and charge a first-time customer one rate, and instead of like all the other cable companies out there, charge them for repeat services less? Do something different. Appreciate your existing clientele. And appreciating an existing clientele is not a direct mail piece that you get that says, free service, a free service call, or free estimates. No one cares about that stuff anymore. So can you tell me a little bit about like
what should a small business owner that might be watching this do to take care of their current customers?
Yeah, but that's it's a pet peeve of mine, and an example that I use frequently is the cable customers who are like, oh, you've been with us for a long time, we're not going to give you this deal. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, makes absolutely no sense. I actually have a customer loyalty model that I created that has 5 pillars of customer loyalty. And the challenge with customer loyalty, not that it's difficult, it's kind of simple, but it's difficult to implement, is that different people have different pillars of loyalty and reason why they are loyal to your business. And also that loyalty differs by the type of business. So I might be loyal to one business for one reason, but loyal to a different business for another reason, but have one pillar that doesn't meet it, like move me at all. So really quickly, those pillars are, premium product or service. So some people just want the best of breed. I love Microsoft. I've worked with them in the past. If I have a presentation that I have to do, if I have a spreadsheet, like I'm using Excel, I'm not using Google spreadsheets or like one of these free things. And so for me, like I'm going to be loyal because I need that best of breed product. But for places, let's say that I can get like a bunch of the same product in different places, I might be loyal for customer service. So like I love Nordstrom. And when I give, this is one of my keynotes and I give this talk everywhere, everybody always has a Nordstrom story about how somebody from Nordstrom, like I had a guy who told me about his son's bar mitzvah where he grew out of a suit the same day, and like the salesperson like drove it out to his house, like just like crazy stuff. So if I'm going to buy something that I can get something similar in a bunch of places, like I'm going to buy it at Nordstrom versus, some of these other places. So that in that particular case, it's a customer service thing, but somewhere else it's because it's a premium product or service. There's also what I call affinity groups, which is basically, do you belong to a group or feel like you're part of a brand? The opposite of my Microsoft experience is the Mac versus the PC. The people who are Mac people are cultish about Apple, and they want to be seen as different than the nerdy guy like me who uses the PC. There's also, people who drive Harleys who have sort of that camaraderie in group because they're Harley riders. So if you have an affinity group, that can create loyalty. Experiences create loyalty. Something as simple as Trader Joe's is an experience when you go grocery shopping. Again, every time I mention Trader Joe's, everybody has a great Trader Joe's story. People hate grocery shopping, but love going to Trader Joe's.
Of the samples.
The samples, the flyer, the experiences, the guy who's in the aisle who, if you don't know where something is, they walk you over and tell you about 10 different things they tasted and how much they loved it. Like, it's an experience. But Disney World's an experience too, and people are loyal for a different kind of experience. And then there are people who there's just no sort of reason to be loyal to that company. So that company just kind of figures out what's important to you and takes care of you in that relationship and bridges the relationship. And that's why you're loyal. So with that framework, you have to go out to each of your customers, you have to get to know them, and you have to know not only what moves them in general, but what moves them in relation to your own business. And if you can do that and create that great relationship around those pillars, that's where you create loyalty. And the cool thing for small business is that you're actually much better set up to do that than a big company is, because you get a chance, and you and your staff get to know customers better than Microsoft, other than the fact that I've worked with them, but in general, most of the people there don't know who I am. So it's much easier as a smaller business to create that loyalty, and people are rooting for you and want you to succeed. And so doing those things to create loyalty and then engaging them as part of the process is something you can do pretty easily.
I think one of the easiest things you could really do for any small business owner is the experience part of it. It's the customer service. And quite candidly, you've been sharing this concept and idea for years, and I've stolen it because I'm a great marketer, and that's what I do. I steal great things.
With attribution, I do not take kindly to content thieves.
But the idea is every small business owner should treat them as a Disney World or a Disneyland experience. If you go there, they need to know from the moment they get off of the airplane. Just think of Disney World. The moment you get off of the airplane, they have a bus that will take you to there free of charge. You go there, everyone's going to talk to you. Everyone's polite. They have customer service down to a absolute T. So
and the amazing part is that shuttle actually isn't free of charge. You just don't know that you're paying for it.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
that's the beauty.
Absolutely. But the idea that if you can create, whether you're an HVAC company, a person that sells biscuits or whatever in between, if you can make the experience of phone call to appointment to integration of meeting to purchase of a sale, if you can make those things seamless and an exciting and an inviting experience, you've built the influencer. Because in today's world, that's what we're going after. We are all on social media now. Facebook is, the engagement levels are through the roof. We've all seen pretty much the Netflix social experiment movie that was out there of how they track engagement. It's for real. So if you can create that experience, you've created influencers. If you can create influencers, you create an army. If you create an army, you create a brand. If you create a brand, you create income.
Love that. Love that. And just as something as simple. So let's use the HVAC company, because that's, something that you don't think is sexy. Imagine you're the HVAC company that brings Krispy Kreme donuts every time you go to an appointment. I always want to see, I feel like there's something going on. Don't we need to call the HVAC company? So easy. And then it's like, did they bring you donuts? Oh my God, how cool is it? Can you believe like you said, on Instagram, my HVAC company brought me donuts? Because here's the thing, is that everybody else is just skating by. People are putting out the least amount of effort possible. So like you said, you just do that little thing to create that experience and to deliver that wonderful service. And you just go that extra mile. It doesn't have to be expensive. Krispy Kreme donuts are less than $1 a piece. Spend $3 to $6, build it into the cost of what you're selling. That's gonna, I forget who it is, but somebody I know who says talks about delighting customers, that would delight a customer.
Yeah. So when I started my company at Prime Media Consulting, I had a mission because I left my job. I had no customers. I left my job and I said, I need to go get customers fast. I have a wife, I have kids, I need to make money. So what I did was I was unapologetically going to turn heads. And if I unapologetically turn heads, I'm going to do something that Moses did. I'm going to part the seas. I'm going to have people that love my brand of crazy, and they're going to become my advocates. They're going to become the people that I go after, and they're going to accept my brand of crazy, and they're going to become my customers. I'm going to get income right away. I'm going to have detractors. I'm going to have people that probably weren't going to buy from me anyways, that say no. I have people, and then what I really have are people on the fence of what's he doing? What's going on over there? And they're just peeking over, either waiting for me to fail or waiting to see what I say or do works. And so I always knew that I need the money, so I'm going to get the people now to get the customers, get the cash flow coming in to pay for everything else, the MVP to build it up and scale it. But what I have to do is figure out the best possible way to go after the people on the fence. Because I'm never going to get the people that say no anyway, so why bother with them? So I feel like most small business owners play a timid game though. They never want to be the person that causes or ruffles feathers. Someone told me a few weeks ago that I am proficient in ruffling feathers. And I said,
I'll put it in a kinder way. So I'll pay you the compliment here is you're willing to take the shot. You're willing to do something uncomfortable that people wouldn't do. You reached out to me. It had been quite some time since we had connected. You had asked for my time. And there are a lot of people who would like to have me on their show who wouldn't have the nerve to ask me. And I've been told that before, in which case I'm like, why? And you were willing, to be patient while I could slot it into my calendar. But the willingness to do that and to not talk yourself out of, oh, this person won't want to do this because A, B, and C. How do you know? You haven't asked. It cost you what, like 50 seconds maybe for you to type the LinkedIn note. And it's possible I, wasn't available and would have said no, but then you would ask the next person. And so just the willingness to not be talked out of somebody else's narrative, like that you've created in your head, is huge. It's just insane. Like how many people will just talk themselves out of something that they've never even asked the other person.
Well, when you, I feel like when you do this, I don't know if you'll agree with this, but like if you've decided to stick your head out there and call your shot, you got to know what game you're playing and you know how to keep the score. I think you've said that before in an interview.
I have.
and so what I would say is, so many people are going to watch what you do, whether you are successful at it or fail, they're going to watch it, right? But if you're successful, the time that you have to score buckets and run up that score is very, very minuscule. Because if you become successful, you're going to get duplicated. And so what I would say to somebody is, or what I would ask you more importantly is, what do you say to someone that is just, they're waiting, you can tell that I want to do it, but I'm not there yet. What do you say to that person?
I think it's asking a question is, what is the roadblock? Like why is it that you're waiting? What are you waiting for? Are you waiting for the perfect time? Are you waiting for the perfect day? Are you waiting to lose 10 pounds? Like what is it? And then what do you think is going to happen if it doesn't work out? Because those two things, like people usually haven't gone through that exercise. Like they have sort of this internal fright thing, but they don't know why. And they haven't really contextualized it. Like, what if you reached out and I wasn't available? Nothing. There's like literally no downside. You put out a LinkedIn message. That's it. And I think when you put a lot of people go, oh, okay, yeah, okay. Like, I don't know. Like they're like there's this kind of like mental ego kind of barrier, but they haven't asked themselves the reason, like, why is it there? What am I waiting for? And like, why am I not just doing this now? And then what happens if this just goes wrong? Usually the downside is nothing. Like 9 out of 10 times, downside nothing.
Yeah. To be honest, most people have the idea that everyone's watching them, and no one gives a shit about you, to be honest.
So it's funny that I was going to say that because you were saying how all these people are watching you fail. And I was about to say, like, I completely disagree. I don't think anybody's paying any attention. I think we all are feel like so much more self-important than we actually are. Nobody knows. Nobody cares. Everybody's busy with their own business. Yeah, they may say something crappy because they're trolling on social media, but they're going to do that no matter what it is that you do. But most people, like, even if you put something out over and over again, like I can't tell you the amount of times where somebody's still like, my book's been out for like a decade and like, oh, you wrote a book? It's like, yeah, you haven't heard me talk about it like 9 million times on social media. And it's like, no, everyone's in their own little world. So unless you create that bridge of, there's a meaning for them, they kind of don't care. I mean, yeah, they'll be jealous if you're successful, but they're not really tracking your every move. And so I would spend very little time worried about what anybody else was thinking, especially if they're not paying you. Worry about what your customers are thinking. But unless you're getting revenue and some sort of return on investment from it, like I don't know why you would care.
So you mentioned your book, and you said you started your book because you were absolutely pissed off in the way that small business owners are doing things. So, which immediately turned my head, which again, there's a trend there, turn heads, get noticed. Hopefully people buy your book. It's amazing. So the entrepreneurial equation, and you call it the world's cheapest business insurance policy.
Yes.
So without giving away everything in the book, what is one thing that a small business owner must make sure that they have going for them when they enter the business arena? Because make no ifs, ands, or buts about it, When you enter the business arena and you stop being the jobby and you start going being at least a solopreneur, you're going against gladiators and titans.
Yeah.
And they feed all day on people that play it safe.
Yeah, no. In the entrepreneur equation, the focus is really about risk and reward. And I think that the biggest issue for so many business owners is that they are chasing a reward that makes no sense given the risks that they're taking on. And risk is not just financial risk, but it's your time. Like, where else could you be taking your time? It's the emotional toll and stress personally and on relationships, potentially, that you are in charge of other people's livelihoods and the like. And so if you are not pursuing something where that payoff makes sense, like, I just don't know why you're doing it. I did a small business online show for CNBC that was called Don't Quit Your Day Job Yet. And I remember there was a woman who had created these pants that make your butt look better at the gym or something.
I saw the video.
And you know, the crazy thing is, I looked at her projections, and like 3 years out, like after investing like hundreds of thousands of dollars, she was making like next to nothing. And I'm like, even if your projections worked, which most of the time they don't, this makes no sense. Like, this whole thing. And that was my, what I told her. I said, I forbid you to start this business, because was just sell your inventory and be done. Because when you go and you play out the best possible case scenario, we haven't even discounted that yet, but play out the best scenario, it still doesn't make any sense. And you're going to end up, wasting just a crap ton of money and a lot of time and a lot of heartache. So you've got to get that risk reward equation correct to have your entrepreneur equation correct.
So you become a successful business, or a relatively successful business. Even as a solopreneur, you can be relatively successful. You can feed your family, you can have a comfortable lifestyle, all that type of stuff. But how often do we self-sabotage ourselves? I mean, if you really think about, you're doing well, your ego naturally is going to get put into place here. So it starts thinking you're hot shit and you can do nothing wrong because you're doing well, you're becoming successful, or your mind wants to get back to a level of comfort zone because you've never experienced this sort of growth before. And so our brains naturally want to be in a level of comfort that you will figure out ways to screw yourself over and self-sabotage yourself because you're not used to the unknown. So
yeah, listen, I think that there are different kinds of entrepreneurs. I think they're the kinds that think they're amazing and, are just kind of nervous about things. There are a lot of entrepreneurs who deal with imposter syndrome, where even though they're really good at what they do, for some reason, they don't internally believe it, or they think that they just got lucky, or they think that they're frauds and they're going to be found out. I mean, that is a huge issue with a lot of very successful people, including successful entrepreneurs. And listen, like, I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't even play one on television. So, that's something you probably want to talk out with somebody who's a little bit more professional. But, the reality is that numbers and paper don't lie, and they don't really have feelings. So you might want to take out the narrative and spend more time focused on, what the numbers tell you. Like, what is, what's happening with income, what does your growth rate look like, those kinds of things, and kind of leave yourself out of the narrative if that's easier for you. If that's, you're your own worst enemy, then like pretend it's for someone else, take yourself out of it, stay in the more concrete aspects of it, because it is, I mean, the reality is that most things in life are us sabotaging stupid shit. So that's kind of, we are really our own worst enemies and our own best opportunity at the same time.
So whether you're a business owner in Deerfield, Illinois, Crystal Lake, Illinois, or Marietta, California, if you're a small business owner, you get inundated with people that want your money. So whether they're salespeople, or they're people saying, hey, you want to sponsor a baseball team, or participate in this, or participate in this, what should a business do or be great at doing to learn how to say no to those type of people, or or what do you think they should be great at doing when they get approached by those people?
All right, so there's two steps to this. So first is the evaluation, because sometimes it makes sense. Just because you don't know the person doesn't mean that it's not a good opportunity. So you need to know the difference between ROI versus ROE. ROI is return on investment. If I make this investment, what do I expect to get back? How am I going to measure it? ROE is return on ego. That's a bunch of people liked my post. They're never going to buy from me, but I feel like I'm really popular now. That doesn't pay your rent. That doesn't grow your business. It may seem lovely in the world, but it's a good ego boost, but you're going to make no money from it. So you need to know the difference. Am I doing this for ROI or am I doing this for ROE purposes? If you're not getting the right ROI and it's for ROE, or it's just stupid, because sometimes it's not either. Sometimes it's just the third option, which is it's just dumb. The best way to say no is to say no. I'm sorry, that doesn't work for me. Sorry, it's not a fit. Do not give an answer. Do not justify it. Do not give a lengthy song and dance. Do not think about it. Nobody is deserving of an entire play about what it is that makes sense, which, by the way, you're probably making up anyway. It's okay to just say, it's not a fit. Thank you. Appreciate you thinking of me.
For the marketing people that may hear this, my favorite no is, I just don't know. I don't know if I can handle all the business that you're going to bring me. I'm like, what a backhanded compliment is that? So I guess the question I would have is as a business owner, you really have two distinct differences of if you're going to spend money on something. What is branding and what is lead generation? So, I mean, branding, I think you would agree, is like billboards and radio and TV. You're creating that need. And then there's other things that are more lead generation that they already have the need. They're just trying to facilitate who to go to. That could be Google or Facebook or Home Advisor or even the phone books that were back in the day. Like, as a business owner, is there a formula that someone should be part of? Or,
yeah,
okay.
There is, but it varies by industry.
Okay.
So the amount that you should be spending on awareness versus something that's going to lead to direct dollars completely varies by what industry. The way a restaurant is going to spend that versus an accountant, and it also depends how important branding is in your particular good or service. So that's where you should look to comparable companies. You should ask competitors. If there are publicly traded companies, you should see what the big guys are doing and understand you might not have the same budget, but on a percentage basis, that if you see they're all in the same amount, like, they're generally spending this amount on marketing and this amount on advertising, that you can get that kind of feedback, what that right amount, or you can ask a digital marketing expert like yourself to say, what are you seeing for someone who's like us? Because there is a right answer, or at least a benchmark that makes sense, where you can expect a return, but totally different. That, like, there are certain businesses, like my accountant makes absolutely, he should spend $0 on branding because he's been part of 9 different accounting firms. And I have it's like a bunch of letters. I don't even remember which one he's at. I have to go look up, are you still this one? Is this still your, I have no idea. But I'm there because of my accountant. And so that's where he needs to be focused. The awareness makes no difference. But there are some types of products and services where you do need to have that awareness. You need to seed that for a long time before somebody's going to make a purchase, especially if it's a bigger purchase. So it just really depends. And that's where you need to seek out your industry associations, your competitors, publicly available information and the like, to figure out as a percentage of every dollar of revenue, where should I be?
I feel like when it comes to lead generation or branding, you have to, I guess, think of very few people care who you are. People care about what you can do for them. And what I think you coined this phrase too, or I heard it from somewhere, but I'm pretty sure I heard it from you, is everyone's favorite radio station is WIIFM. What's in it for me?
That's another Carolism. I actually don't even know if I created that or if I heard that from someone, but I've been using that for a long time.
So, well, we both created it.
I'm glad it stuck with you, though. That's
absolutely. I retain good people's information.
Good.
So I guess the question I would have for people is if you think that people first and foremost care about what's in it for them, you need to explain, whether it's in your direct mail piece or it's your website or whatever, what is it going to be for them? What's my unique selling proposition? What's going to get me the opportunity to get the lead? And so as the business owner, you really should, in my opinion, maybe it's just because of the industry I'm in, who knows, but I feel like lead generation is paramount because first of all, you don't make anything until you sell something, and you can't brand anything. You can brand yourself to bankruptcy is if you don't have cash flow coming in. And so that's what I would say as a small business owner, especially from what my research is, most small business owners, solopreneurs, usually spend between $500 and $2,000 a month on their marketing efforts. And so if you're within that realm, you have to make the decision of what is a branding tool? What's going to be, if the back of the baseball jerseys is great and that's something that's going to make me money, fantastic. Or is it better spent something that's actually going to provide me a phone call? And I think most small business owners, because they're timid, they're worried about feelings. And so they try different things that they're worried that might not make sense for them, or they're unafraid to cut the cord on something that's not working because the fear of the unknown of what if I do something different.
Right. And also, I mean, if you have relationships, you invest in the lead gen, you can make more revenue, and then you can have a small pot of like things I know aren't going to make me any money, but I do it because I feel good and I want to support the community, which you may know that sponsoring the kids' basketball team or whatever it is isn't going to get you a dime, but you want to be involved in your community, and that's a good thing. And so you just put that in your budget and go, this is like, screwball community building, whatever money. And I'm just good. I know this is like my good deed. And that's great. That's part of being a business owner. You get to make those decisions. The problem comes when you're not actually making those decisions proactively. They're happening to you. So you have to know that you're doing this intentionally, and here's my solid budget. And once it's exhausted for the year, we're back to no.
So I feel like we live in a microwave society where if you start a business and it's not successful in the first 6 months, or you're seeing 6 months of just lull valleys of revenue growth, a lot of people just write off the business owner. They write off their own business. They just say, I'm going to try something different. It doesn't really help that we're in a pandemic where you're in your house all the time, alone to your own thoughts and self-doubts. So what would you say to the business owner who's kind of struggling right now?
3 years. 3 years to build a foundation for your business. That's the appropriate runway. That's what you should plan for. That's how much money you should have. If you don't, that's how you have to scrounge and figure out how you're going to cut expenses and stay alive until you can resurrect. But it's a 3-year trajectory, and that's pretty much across the board. Even if you're Oprah, when she started her own network, it took her 3 years, and she had more money and contacts and friends than any of us. So 3 years.
So because we've had the engagement of social media so much higher in the year 2020, the need for Facebook ads versus free marketing on Facebook, which is Facebook groups and community pages. I feel like we've talked, there's big business owners who are trying to be small. There's small business owners that are trying to be big. I think the one competitive edge that a small business owner has is they can go into the local Deerfield community page, the local Cary community page, McHenry community page, whatever it is, and they can be the local presence. Larger companies can't compete with that. Larger companies don't have the time or the manpower to really be small, which is what they're trying to do with all the, Chipotle's doing just the drive-through nows. They're trying to figure out ways to be small business and get things more done efficiently. You have, as a small business owner, the capability to dominate your local marketplace. And you don't have to spend a dime doing it. And so what I don't know if you would agree with this, but I feel like the untapped resource by many business owners is the local community pages on Facebook that doesn't cost you anything, but can yield you a great return on investment, whether it's community clout, whether it is becoming the expert in your industry in that community, or someone saying, hey, I'm looking for a plumber, I'm looking for a heating contractor, who do you recommend? you have the opportunity to now be that person that they recommend because they've seen you in the local community.
I mean, listen, this is your domain. I'm very much of everyone staying in their expert domain lane. And from a loyalty building standpoint, that makes a ton of sense to me. And it is very sort of resonant with everything I do. And Alex, I know we're running very short on time here, but I did want to show you one thing. I'm going to
Awesome.
behind me, just not to make you totally jealous, but since you were talking about the action figure, I just wanted to show it here so that you can all see in the box.
I do like it. I do like it. I think it's cool.
And at this point, if you're trying to get one, I think there's some folks who have them on eBay.
Oh, nice. Okay. You know what's going to happen is I'm probably going to buy one on eBay, and then I'm going to send you a picture with me having it.
I love it. I love it.
So I have two more questions because I know you're incredibly busy, and I appreciate the time that you kind of gave me here. You said that, in 2021 being here, you said that a small business owner, you no longer have the luxury of not being a marketer.
No.
And as someone who owns a marketing company, honestly, I have having a national recognized person saying that, just punch in the face, brutal honesty, it's a breath of fresh air. Why do you think most people aren't? Why do you think that is the hole up, and how do we kind of get over it?
I can speak from my own limitations and having to learn this ugly truth is I have that like, oh, I don't like to bother people kind of thing. I'm also an introvert, strangely enough. Everyone thinks with my personality I'm an extrovert, but like I'm super happy to just be left alone and not interacting with anyone ever. So, it's just a personality thing. I think there are some people who enjoy that connection and some people who don't. And there are unfortunately a lot more people who don't. Plus it's a discipline, and it's one of those things, if you haven't learned that discipline, and you aren't willing to commit to doing those things on a regular basis, you're not going to be successful. And then when people aren't successful at things, they don't like them because they failed, and you end up in that whole cycle. But the reality is, it's not 1970 anymore. Everything that possibly exists out there exists. Even if it's not a direct, exact replica of what you do, it's pretty close. There are lots of choices. Nobody needs anything really. So you're competing for a lot of mind share. And it's actually, with all the tools we have and all the connectivity, I've said before, it's actually harder to get people's attention because it's so much easier for you to reach people, it's easier for everyone else to reach people, and people are taking advantage of that. So I think that's why you really need to focus on that marketing discipline. You need to be working with people like yourself, Alex, and you need to be very intently focused on your existing customers, and also be willing to do the things that work. I think there's so many people, when they see things like marketing and advertising, they feel like they have to do X because it's like the hot thing, or it's what everyone is doing, or they heard from somebody they need to be doing something. But like, if you look at your customers and you go like, how did we get these customers? Like, what are the things that we did? Like, how did they come in? If you don't know, find that out. And then once you find that out, like, group them in, and you notice like, oh, well, we've gotten like 70% of our customers this way. Do more of that. That works. You've seen that it works. Continue to do that. Don't be like, oh, okay, well, now we're going to go like, fly a plane with something behind. Like, no, if it's working, just do more of what works. Like, there's an infinite amount of people out there, much bigger than your existing business in most cases. So like, keep doing the things that work. I know it sounds so simple, but again, it's like this basic blocking and tackling stuff is what most small business owners don't do. And none of this is rocket science. It's just doing it. Just doing it.
I feel like you said something interesting, that most things have pretty much been developed or created, right? Why not just find something that works really well, but has some things that need to be updated and tweaking, and just start a business that does that? Improve on something that is already proven to be successful, and you can create a whole nother world. People are like, I've always wished that was there. Fill that void.
Yeah, I mean, people always want, like, like, oh, what's like something new and different, and educating people on something new and different is really expensive. And usually the company that educates people aren't the ones that are successful. Google was not the first search engine. You know, you had Ask Jeeves and Netscape and all these other things out there. There's a reason why those companies, they sucked up all their money educating people on search engines and browsers and things like that. And then other tech companies came in and said, we're going to do it better. So if there's a way to do it better and to solve a problem in a better way, definitely go down that path.
And eventually you'll have people that you turn heads, they wonder what you're doing, and then they're going to figure it out. And they're going to be the ones that become successful, just like we talked about with Google, just like we talked about with other people that will duplicate your efforts if you're a small business owner. So I got one more question for you, because I know your time is limited and I respect your time that you gave me to talk. So 2021 is here now. It's the new year. It's the year of the bull, I think, actually, for the Chinese New Year. So
hopefully it's not a year of a lot of bull.
Yeah, true. So usually in a new year, it's all of us kind of turn the page. It's new thought process. We all have resolutions, all that type of stuff going on. As a small business owner that might be watching this, what is the thing that they need to have their mindset going in for the new year?
Whatever your goal is, triple it. Right now, right off the bat, just triple, like whatever. And I can't tell you what your goal is, because you're all in business for a different reason. It doesn't necessarily have to be financial, like whatever it is, but like put it up by a scope of 3. So like whatever you're going to push yourself towards, triple it. Because the reason is, if you get halfway there, you're still going to be 50% ahead of where you were had you not done that. So you want to triple whatever your goals are. As tangible as you can make them. That's the best way to do it. And measuring goals is one of the best ways to become successful. It's why it's much easier to lose weight than it is to maintain weight. It's why people in the Olympics continue to break world records. It's not because necessarily everybody's performance is always like that much better than it was, 20 years ago. Is because it's just easier to get a little bit better when you know what you're shooting for. And so having something that is measurable is huge for success, and tripling it ensures that, like, as I said, if you fall on your face by 50%, you're still going to be 50% ahead of where you would have been anyway.
Thank you so much for your time. If people want to know more about Carol Roth, I'm going to tell you 2 things. One, carolroth.com. The blogs are amazing. Go to the website, read as many as you can, contribute as many at times as you can. And the other thing is pick up the Entrepreneur Equation. It's on Amazon. You can buy it. She literally is one of the top industry influencers by Small Business Trends. I looked at like 10 years in a row, pretty much. It's crazy how much value this person has to any small business owner, and the things that she just gives you as an opportunity for content. And more importantly, she's a Chicago girl. So if you really want the no nonsense face, real talk, straightforward business owner mentality, she's definitely one to listen to. So thank you for your time. I really do appreciate it. I'm very thankful that I took the step to reach out to you after it's been years that we've talked. And I look forward to reading more about your journey in the future.
Thank you. And I will also plug a couple other things if you don't mind, because I
Absolutely.
am a marketer.
Go ahead.
LinkedIn gives you the opportunity to follow me. So if you follow, when I post things, that'll show up in your feed. I have a new book that has not been announced yet, but relates to small business, that will be coming out in 2021. So keep an eye out for that for sure. Twitter, only if you have a twisted sense of humor. If you do not come to follow me on Twitter. But if you do, Twitter at Carol J.S. Roth. And then you had mentioned in the beginning our legacy and wishes planning system, FutureFile. That's at futurefile.com. And this is a mission-based business that I developed after losing several loved ones, including my father, who created the prototype for my sister and I. And whether you are somebody who is aging yourself, or you have a family member who's aging, or you just don't want to end up like Tony Hsieh of Zappos without a will in a tragic situation, it's really important to have your information and your wishes organized. not just financial, social media accounts, where to find important things. Do you have a will? Do you have powers of attorney if you get in an accident? And we're under $100. So futurefile.com, we have a software, we have a kit, but please take a step to protect your family.
Fantastic. So thank you again for your time. I truly, truly do appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.